From page 1235, the College Survey of English Literature, shorter edition, revised, not 1942, but the 1951 edition, in the section of the 20th century. W. Somerset Maugham, 1874. It was in Paris, where his father was connected with the British Embassy, that William Somerset Maugham was born January 25th, 1874. He was, it seems, born to be a cosmopolitan, an inveterate traveler, and an insatiable reader. He had read all of Scott by the time he was 10. He taught himself to write by copying whole sections of the English classics. He was educated at King's School, Canterbury, and Heidelberg University. His father wanted him to be a doctor, and he dutifully took his degree at St. Thomas's Hospital in London. But he never practiced medicine. His first novel, Eliza of Lambeth, 1897, written before he was 23, and while he was a medical student, grew out of his experiences. Its frank revelation of slum conditions was considered sordid, even revolting, but it marked the advent of a new and extremely gifted apostle of candor. Maugham wrote 18 works between Eliza of Lambeth and his next success. There were 7 novels, a collection of short stories, a melodrama, several comedies, and farces, but none of them made any particular impression. It was of Human Bondage, 1915, which forced the critics to take Maugham seriously. Of Human Bondage, perhaps Maugham's most important contribution to the period is semi-autobiographical. It returns to his days at the hospital and presents, without mawkishness or false indignation, a panorama of everyday working-class existence. Superficially disinterested and detached, the author goes deep into ordinary life to realize extraordinary scenes. Passages of extreme brutality are followed by moments of great pity and tenderness. The Moon and Sixpence, 1919, was a sudden and enormously popular change. Adapting the life story of a French artist, Paul Gauguin, in Tahiti, Maugham discovered the South Seas. For many years he luxuriated in the Orient, in actuality as well as in fiction. The mood of the public was escapists, and Maugham, an unusually skilled craftsman, exploited that mood to the full. Some books of short stories of this period are The Trembling of a Leaf, 1921, which contained Miss Thompson, a story that was successfully adopted for the stage and screen in Rain. The Casuarina Tree, 1929, in which appeared The Letter, one of Maugham's greatest stage and screen successes. And Ah, King, 1933. The East also yielded such a tense novel as The Painted Veil, 1925, and such an original play as East of Suez, 1922. By the time he was 75, The number of Maugham's published volumes had almost reached that of his years, and most of them had enlarged his audience, enhanced his reputation, and swelled his fortune. His plays were brilliant and financially dependable. Among the dramatic hits of the London stage were The Circle, 1921, Our Betters, 1923, The Letter, 1925, and The Constant Wife, 1926. Maugham is probably one of the few contemporary authors who have served their country as a spy. See Ascendon or The British Agent, 1928, and whose garret was a magnificent villa on the Riviera. For a while in later middle life, Maugham occupied himself largely with reminiscences and reappraisal. Cakes and Ale, or The Skeleton in the Cupboard, 1930, is part fact, part fiction, and part caricature of a grand old man of English letters, supposedly Thomas Hardy, a facile, literary opportunist, obviously the novelist Hugh Walpole, and a gallery of shamelessly public-private lives. The Summing Up, 1938, is a frank and revealing mental autobiography. East and West, 1934, resembles Maugham's collected short stories, many of which are delicate but penetrating explorations of the intricacies and contrasts of human character. As an anthologist, the selection in Tellers of Tales, 1939, proves his taste. The volume also contains a long and stimulating introductory essay on the art of writing. He has recently returned to fiction, and his latest works include the novels The Razor's Edge, 1944, and Catalina, 1948, and a volume of short stories, Creatures of Circumstance, 1947. In 1949, at the age of 75, in the prologue to a motion picture called Quartet, made up of 4 of his short stories, Maugham summed up the critics' appraisal of his career as follows. In my 20s, the critics said I was brutal. In my 30s, they said I was flippant. In my 40s, they said I was cynical. And in my 50s, they said I was competent. And then in my 60s, they said I was superficial. I have gone my own way with a shrug of the shoulders, following the path I have traced, trying with my work to fill out the pattern of life that I have made for myself. A writer's notebook, published in the same year, contains hints for copy and sketches of men, women, and incidents jotted down over 50 years. Successful, cosmopolitan, accomplished are the words usually employed to characterize Maugham. If they are not altogether critical, they are fairly accurate descriptions of one who is first and last a teller of tales. Read, the story given here is the reminiscent of The Moon and Sixpence in its haunting romantic mood and its poetic tone intermixed with blunt cynicism. And that is the introduction to Read from the College Survey, 1951 edition.